Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending where you're joining us from. Back with another rendition of the B&H virtual event space. And we have another expert panel. Today, we're talking the Sony Xperia PRO-I. And of course, we got some new faces. We got some familiar faces. I don't know if you guys saw Jason Vong down there dancing, making faces. He's already ready to go, as you see. But joining Jason and Viv, we have Eric Rubens, who is a photographer and videographer, and from Sony Nguyen. So expert panel, I encourage all you guys to get all your questions in. A huge thank you and welcome to everybody joining us from YouTube, live stream, Vimeo, and Facebook. And a special thank you to our sponsor for today's event, Sony. So we're going to get it started with some introductions. I'm going to bring everybody on my panel here in. We'll start it with you, Eric. Eric, what's going on, man?
Not much, just another beautiful day traveling. Find myself away from home, like always.
Well, hey, there's nobody better to talk about something as mobile and excellent as this piece of gear that we're talking about today. You look like you got a fresh backdrop going on there. Where are you casting from?
Yeah, I'm coming to you live from the Houston airport with a very exciting conference room. Sorry, I'm not bringing the best ambiance behind me, but excited to be here today and talk to everyone and share my experience with the Xperia.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you on. Jason Vong, Viv Lee, what's going on? How you guys been?
Good.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you again.
Glad to be back. Glad to have good company with us chatting. Yeah.
You guys always bring the energy, so it's always great to have you guys on. It's another Xperia panel, so it wouldn't be right if we didn't have you. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us back.
Van, first time on our little virtual event space here. What's going on? How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. So I'm Van. I'm pro support in imaging training, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm also in the state of Texas, but I'm a little further away from Eric. I'm in North Austin.
Oh, you guys could have been sharing like the United, whatever their lounge is called there. You guys could have been doing it up on together.
And you're not in a conference room, so props to you on that.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you want me to come pick you up and get some barbecue or something.
Perfect.
Oh, come on, man. You guys can't throw it out there like that. It's lunchtime. It's 1 o'clock over here. I've had 2 cups of coffee and nothing to eat. So we'll table the food conversation until later. I don't want to get aggy over here. But Van, we'll start it with you. I mean, let's crack it open and get it going. Why are we here? What is this Xperia PRO-I we're talking about? If you can talk a little bit, introduce for those who might not be familiar with the Xperia line, can you kind of take us through the history of the line and ultimately culminating in what we're talking about today, the PRO-I?
Yeah, so Sony's been making mobile phones for a while, but it was just a short while ago, about 3 years ago, that we started the Xperia 1 series. And the Xperia 1 started with, well, I've got one here. This is the PRO-I, but it started with that 21:9 aspect ratio. Now we've got, it started with an HD screen. Now we've got 4K, HDR, OLED, and finally, 120 hertz refresh plus 240 hertz touch capabilities. I mean, we've ratcheted it up quite a bit in a short amount of time. A lot of it has been a culmination of all the different technologies that Sony, as a large company, can bring to the table. We've got a television department, and we've got camera department and PlayStation department. And of course, on top of all of that, we actually make content through Sony Pictures. We make content through Sony Music. So we've got a lot of experience and know-how in how things should sound and how to bring it to life, the best. And kind of just makes sense that now that everybody pretty much uses one of these devices to consume all that content, to make probably the best device that you possibly can. And just, about a year ago, we introduced the original Xperia Pro, which was our first in the lineup that had 5G ultra wideband millimeter wave technology. And it really was a transmission device for working professionals out there that needed to transmit files back and forth really quickly. Fast forward to today, and we've got the Xperia PRO-I, which is now, think about the I for imaging. This is the professional smartphone for imaging professionals like Eric and Jason and Vivienne.
The one thing you can't create in a lab is people like Eric, Jason, and Vivienne who get to go out there and put all that lab stuff to test. I mean, we know you can do all the tests in the world, a controlled environment, but you need people out there using it. You need it to work. You need it to work as creatives want it to function, for it to be something that's not just, a cool piece to hang up on your mantle and say, oh, look what we made, but something that's functional in an everyday environment. So Eric, I'll start with you. I know you used it primarily for stills, right? What are your first impressions of the PRO-I?
Yeah, I mean, my style of photography is kind of rooted in getting in situations where there's very poor light. So I'm traditionally out before the sun rises, very low light conditions. I'm out after the sunset when all the color comes. So for me, like the limitation in using mobile devices has always been they just don't perform really well in low light. And I always had a default to using my alpha camera and traditionally get out a tripod. And it was just this bulky setup that, was never really that fun to lug around everywhere. And fast forward to nowadays when you can actually put the same sensor that I believe is in the RX 100 series, Mark 7 into this device. And I'm no longer feel the need to have to get out my big bulky camera in those low light situations. So that was the first thing for me is, first of all, how comfortable it feels in my hand. I feel going back and forth between my Alpha series camera and the Xperia Pro-I is almost like a seamless transition. I'm not trying to dial in different settings on one and then go back and forth to the other one and kind of feel like that interoperability is not there. I mean, they go perfectly together. So it's just a great feeling to be able to go out with just this in my hand and be able to capture situations in very low light that I was never able to do before.
Awesome. Now you mentioned that one
that brings up a big point. I didn't even mention that the Xperia Pro-I, the big thing about it is the big lens on the back, of course. And that big lens houses a 1-inch image sensor. It's a stacked CMOS sensor, which means it can read data super fast. The pixels are huge. They're 2.4 microns across, which is double the size of a pixel of a normal smartphone camera, So that's where Eric's getting that low light capability, a lot of the, kind of professional quality that you would expect in a standalone camera. And we have been listening to our customers, and we've been watching what's being, the kind of the feedback out there of the initial launch and release. And I think there's some confusion. So I want to definitely kind of get ahead of it and try to clear the air and let customers know that, yes, the Xperia Pro-I has this 1-inch sensor, and we're not using the entire sensor as some people have pointed out, and that's not entirely uncommon. When you look at any digital camera, there's usually two specifications that are disclosed. There's the actual pixels physically on the sensor itself, and then there's the effective pixels, which are really, what you're going to see whenever you open up a file, when you open up an image that's created by that camera. So, for instance, in the Alpha 7R Mark IV, you've got, a 63 megapixel actual resolution on that sensor. But when you look at the files, they're actually 61 megapixels. You're losing a couple megapixels in there because it's not utilizing the entire area. And I think the big kind of surprise for some customers is how much of a drop you get with the Xperia Pro-I, which is, if you look at the RX 100 Mark 7, it's a 20 megapixel capable camera. And with the Pro-I, you're looking at that main camera and you're saying, well, it's delivering 12 megapixels. Where the other megapixels going? And so that's kind of, one of those things. Definitely it's on purpose. 12 megapixels is great for, obviously the data throughput and being able to process the files and produce the low noise that Eric really likes, as well as manage kind of the video capabilities on top of that as well. You think of something like the Alpha 7S Mark III or the Alpha 7S series in general, which is 12 megapixels, but on a really, really big sensor. So you get the quality of the image, the quality of the pixels over the resolution. I think that's one of the key things. But yeah, so I know Eric's shot a lot of stills with it. So, 12 megapixels, what do you think, Eric? Is that enough?
Yeah, that's more than enough. And I think you hit on a really good point. I think a lot of brands might chase numbers. So they might just go for the headline catching, how many megapixels can we put on paper? But I would rather have high quality, a lower number with less noise. And I'm not intending on blowing up images taken on this onto a massive billboard. I would rather have very clean, like great performance in low light and like high quality over a catchy number of, the maximum number of megapixels that we can get onto a stat sheet. So I think that you hit it right on the head there about like the quality over sometimes those attention catching things.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to jump in and just say, like, if anyone out there is just really curious about this phone, I mean, like, if you're in New York, I think hopefully B&H has a demo model, a product that you can, play with, or just, stop by a store and just really play with it in your hands, because like Van and Eric is saying, you got to really see it. And for us, we were taking some sample photos and sample videos just in low light conditions. And the difference is there with the 1-inch sensor, even if it's not utilizing the whole full sensor. And we just like noticed that it just looks really, really good, especially the dual mechanical aperture, that F2 just opens up a lot of light, and you're going to see that quality right there once you start taking some photos in low light conditions or even bright light conditions. Yeah.
Well, Van, it looks like what I'm seeing for what I'm hearing from you guys, it's like I'm hearing the RX a lot and talking about that sensor. And it's almost like you guys have addressed the issue of the people who are like, yeah, I'll just use my phone. I'm not going to go out and buy, an A7R4, an A7S. I'm just going to, my phone's good enough. Where you're taking and giving those people who want the mobility of the cell phone camera, and you're saying, well, we're not going to make it just a mobile phone camera. We're going to make it a camera that has the capabilities of a mobile phone. Is that kind of the direction you guys wanted to go?
Yeah, definitely. I think, in my line of work, I do a lot of event support. We do a kind of a lot of the kind of logistics behind some of the major events that you may not see. So, I've been to Super Bowl, I've been to World Series and Olympics and those type of events. But we're in the back and we get to dole out, really great, 400 millimeter, $13,000 lenses and $7,000 bodies and all that stuff. And when you're around that stuff and get to shoot with those in high impact situations, sometimes, you pull out your smartphone in your other life, your real life, right? And you're like, oh man, this is just not cutting it anymore, And so I think that's one of the things that we really kind of saw, again, being on that side of the, the curtain, if you will, knowing like we're able to produce some really amazing images. And we kind of looked around and said, you know what, like we've got some really amazing tech around here. Why don't we put that amazing tech into, a device like the Xperia Pro and make it just kind of that really awesome experience, so that it's less of a jarring effect whenever you go from your, big, mirrorless setup like the Alpha One, and all that stuff to your smartphone and you're, taking snapshots of your kids running around, or you're, out in a situation where you're not backpacking with all your gear. And you're like, you know what, this is the camera that I'm using, and it can produce amazing quality images that you come to expect and that you come to appreciate, being kind of in that industry for so long. And so I'm glad that the engineers have been able to figure out a way to engineer that 1-inch sensor into this smartphone, because again, it's not so much that it's got the 1-inch sensor, that's great, but the benefits of that sensor, that particular one, where it has the phase detection autofocus, which is super fast and snappy focus. It has, all the hundreds of autofocus points. Great dynamic range. You got great shadow detail, great highlight detail, fast readouts, so you can shoot super fast as well. All those great things, all the things that the creature comforts that you kind of get, whenever you're shooting with your more dedicated alpha cameras. I kind of think of it like, a couple weekends ago, we had the Formula One races here in Austin, and I kind of think of it like, Hamilton, when he gets in like out of his Formula One car and into like a Corolla or something. Like, what does he think? He's like, yeah, I don't want this anymore. I think that's kind of the experience, is like, I think that's why they, on their personal cars, they probably have the Porsches or the, Lamborghinis or whatever, because that's such a difference if you go from one, driving one type of vehicle at work and then, personally, the other. You kind of get spoiled with the performance.
Totally. I mean, I don't think Eric Rubens is going to be pulling out a flip phone out in some random place he's traveling to. And Eric, look, you have a very robust, to say the least, following. And I think something like this is like, if you're on the go, you have to provide a certain level of quality to your images. I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think there's a lot of situations where I'm put into a very small place where it's just not conducive to getting out like my bigger camera setup. So I do a lot of shoots for United Airlines, and they want me to capture the authentic experience, like traveling on a plane. And I don't want to pull out my big alpha camera right next to the guy next to me and try to capture those candid moments like with my wife. I also do a lot of hotel shoots. I got to be able to go into a restaurant when there's dinner service and be able to kind of capture that experience organically. So I think having a high quality device you can just pull out of your pocket. And the other really cool thing that I haven't talked about is the variable aperture. That's mechanical. It's not simulated through software. So being able to jump between f4 and f2.0 and get the really nice natural looking bokeh behind like food shots or even just candid portraits. Or my daughter, like I travel so much with I have a little 7-month-old now. So being able to jump and capture really nice like portrait shots of her is something I was never able to do in a mobile device before. And it just looks very natural and authentic.
I wanted to stay on that variable aperture there, the mechanical aperture, where we all know with the various modes for taking portraits, I think that's been a challenge of the mobile phone industry and mobile phone cameras to create that shallow depth of field look and not have it look like software. So, Van, can you dive in a little bit to the thinking behind that and how you guys actually put that into fruition?
Yeah. So, definitely when we think of, professional cameras, a lot of times people jump to the full frame and the medium format, cameras for particular reasons. The larger the sensor, the more it exaggerates kind of the dynamic range that you can capture. It exaggerates the amount of shallow depth of field that you have access to. And all sorts of things like that. And, so number one, putting a larger sensor in here does mean that we do have a larger surface area, even though if we're not using the entire part of it, we have a larger surface area. So an f2 on a 1-inch sensor, is going to be a different kind of depth of field as you have with a smaller, smartphone sensor. So you do get that enhancement. But then on top of that, we know a variety of imaging professionals were going to be using this camera. And not everybody needs that shallow depth of field look. Some people want deep depth of field look. If you're shooting, landscapes or cityscapes, for instance, you want lots of sharpness, lots of crisp, details and that type of thing. So typically in a dedicated camera, you would just open up your aperture or you stop down your aperture, right? So you go from 2.8 down to f8 or f11 to shoot those kind of deep depth of field looks. And so having a variable aperture, which really no other camera currently or a smartphone on the market really offers, it gives you that versatility. And then on top of that, you can use it as another component to adjust your exposure as well. So, and that's something that, again, smartphones really didn't have access to. It was kind of like, well, this has a 1.7 or a 2.0 aperture, and that's what you're stuck with. You either have to change your ISO or change your shutter speed, and that's it, or try to hold a, ND filter or something on the front of it. This just gives you one more level of control in kind of what your creative vision is going to look like and your intention. And that's really the key thing is Sony is just trying to build the hardware that's going to let the creators like Eric and Jason and Vivienne do their thing, and do it easier without having to pack, a whole set of filters with stepping rings and all sorts of stuff like that as well. So if it's something that we can do to make it more compact and sleek and easy to use, that's what we're all about.
And that when people like Jason and Viv get their hands on it, they're going to be putting it through all of its paces. You can't put anything out there and not have it tested. If you say it's going to do something, it's got to do it now. Jason and Viv, yeah. I got to know from each of you. I know, you each got your own little thing going on there, right? Who's the video? Who's more of the still? What was the call outs for you guys? What did you really find impressive about the Pro-I or the Pro-I?
I think that's really great. I think for myself, because of the form factor, I found myself gravitating it to use for photo first, just because I really wanted to kind of test it. And I think it really helped. We actually were able to take it to Hawaii recently. And it was just like our own little trip. And many times, like a lot of our events and everything were kind of unplanned. Like, many days we schedule shoot days, but sometimes we were trying to, play tourists, go out and do things, not really focus on just like shooting. But then, you can never really control what happens or where you're going to end up. So a lot of moments, like I think we ended up going to like this crater, like a
Cocoa Head crater.
Yeah. And, we didn't really know what it was going to be like. It was like for sunrise, and we didn't bring like our whole setup with us because it wasn't really planned. But then I was able to just kind of pull out the phone and just be like, hey, like Jason was able to get he was doing like a time lapse. And I was like, hey, this is perfect. Like, I'm going to grab a couple photos, but then I was able to easily switch it over to video. And I think a lot of when we're out and about, like a big component when we're working off of each other is that we always want to capture like BTS, or we want to capture what we're doing. Because many times like this is something we use in the videos after, and we forget sometimes. Like it's tough when we don't plan on it. Like we don't plan on bringing the additional setups and everything. It's something we don't have. And then we always, like when we get back to the office, we're like, oh shoot, we forgot to shoot this. Like we forgot to get this. So I didn't really have an excuse. I just pulled out the phone and I was like, okay, let me just grab some quick video of you shooting your time lapse from behind. And I just felt like it was really complimentary, and it was something I could use. Like I can get some photo and then quickly switch it over to video, make sure that we're also getting something for
The buttons too.
You know,
Maybe
and-
talk about the buttons.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, the buttons are
talk
easy
about the
because you
layout.
hold
Yeah.
a button, like this is literally it, and you just hold this button on top, and then it pulls out the camera right away. And then
Yeah.
right next to it is like a little round button. And for us, when it came like this, it came programmed to pull up the video app. So I can literally just switch back and forth between photo and video, and not
So,
worry about
I
it too
mean,
much.
you know, just as she was saying, just kind of piggybacking. I mean, like she just has to pull out the phone, hold down the shutter button, and look at that. It's ready to go. Oh, did I? Oh, prevent accidental censor. Okay, right there. You see that? It comes up pretty quickly.
Mhm.
And
What are we looking at? All the settings. I see a bunch of settings there. What are we
Oh,
looking at
yeah.
as?
Yeah, so this layout right here, this UI, if you guys are like used to the alpha cameras, it's just very similar, and it's
That
just
looks like the
Very intuitive.
looks like the
very
function
easy to
screen.
adapt.
I look at her
Yeah,
Smeezy,
that's
you
right.
see the face, you see the face detection going on right now.
You guys look great. Take a selfie.
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
I
There
was
you
going
go.
to say
Easy to
the
find
face-
button too, and then just snap it. Yeah. So the shutter button is like, I think the way that
Mhm.
Sony designed it is to mimic like a real shutter on camera. So
Yeah.
then if you half press it, it's gonna like focus, and if you do a full press, it's just gonna take the photo. So it's pretty cool.
It definitely gives that professional feel. It's not like I'm just like taking my phone out, like tapping a button. I'm just like, oh, let me take this out, press my buttons on top. So I thought that was really good. And then,
You saw how she yanked the phone off from me. She just, I'll take the video. I'll take the photo.
well, it's just when it's like on the go, like this setup, it's like, it's just a lot easier than, me pulling out my camera and then making sure I'm using the right lens and to make sure
Well,
it's
what-
wide enough and all of this.
I mean, one reason people are gonna, Sony known for having great video quality. A lot of people shoot their video content with Sony.
Mhm.
Talk about using this. I mean, for people like me, who it's like, hey, I just gotta get pictures of my son running around at soccer practice. I don't really care if it's in 1K, 10K. I don't care. But for you guys who have to keep up a certain level of professionalism in your content, and you want to have a certain level of quality, can you talk about the video capabilities of this? Is it something where you will replace in situations like that, filming content with an actual mirrorless setup?
You know, I wouldn't say replace. Oh, am I muted? Okay, perfect. I wouldn't say replace, but more like supplementary. I think
Mhm.
Vivienne brought up a really good point, because there's some days where we're just, it's unplanned. We're just having a nice, casual, relaxed day. Maybe we're out sightseeing, and
Mhm.
we don't want to carry, all the gimbals, all the cameras, all the lenses. I like maybe taking a little camera with me, but maybe there are, we'll run into something, maybe a back alleyway or like a really nice cityscape or landscape. And we're just like, oh, this is going to be a good for the video, maybe a future video that we're working on. And she can just use something like this and just shoot videos and have some really good quality. And the crazy thing about the Xperia Pro-I is that it's capable of shooting 4K 120 frames per second, which is pretty insane. I'm a little jealous that the RX 100 Mark VII doesn't have that. It's one of my favorite cameras. And this tiny little device right here is capable of 4K 120. So lately, we've actually been producing or delivering our content on YouTube in 4K 60. And we think that looks really, really good. I mean, the motion is just amazing. I think it really just adds like another level of viewing experience. Maybe some people won't notice it, but others might. And the fact that this device can capture 4K 120 just allows me to slow it down by 50% in post. So we're shooting, maybe a tutorial or maybe going through some of the latest gear that is out in the market right now. We can just shoot in 4K 120, not have to worry about, stability or anything too much, put it into post, slow it down by 50% and deliver 4K 60 content.
Jason, YouTube notices everything. Come on, man. You already know this by now.
YouTube notices.
You can't
I'm
get anything
waiting.
by YouTube.
I put out 2 videos so far. No one has commented on the 4K 60 yet. I was even blamed about it too. I stuck it in the title too, 4K 60. But I
Maybe
think
they didn't
YouTube, do your
settings
job.
yet.
Do your job. Now,
Yeah.
what about this Video Pro feature? What a little birdie told me about this. What's
Yeah.
going on with that?
Yes, so this is one of the latest apps that Sony has developed for this phone. So before we had the Cinema Pro app, which is great. You know, the band is color science, but to someone who maybe is more familiar with the alpha cameras, mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, you know, like what is like, you know, what is it? Like shutter angle and all of that. So it's developed to make it, you know, very similar to operating a DSLR or mirrorless cameras. So you have your shutter speed, your ISO, your white balance. You can do custom white balance with this. You can also zoom. Audio, you can do audio levels.
Really?
So this app right here is just as you can see, it's a little bit different compared to the photo app. It's a widen it up right here, but all the buttons, all the record button right here, zoom, it's just all there to make it easy to.
It's easy.
So
for
that's
me
a
to switch
separate.
into.
That's a separate app, or
It is
Yes.
it is a separate app.
If you hold the circle button, it pulls up that app for us.
Yeah,
So
at
I
least
can
that's how it's
just
programmed on.
so
switch
it
it.
doesn't have to be downloaded. It's embedded into the device.
Exactly. So you can
So
shoot. Sorry, go
let
ahead.
let me talk about that real
Maybe.
quick. We did introduce you know, the Video Pro app in conjunction with and you know, the Cinema Pro app is still there. And it's really, you know, to address the fact that there are different types of video professionals out there, and not everybody has a cinema workflow. Some people have more of a broadcast workflow where you just need to get the shot properly exposed and let the camera kind of do some of its own work so that you can worry about the other creative aspects of it. Sometimes, you know, you don't have the ability to do more than one take. You know, you can't just rewind live and have everybody do it again. So, you know, the Video Pro or Videography Pro is meant exactly for that. So for quick kind of videos, be able to cut them, be able to transmit them quickly without having to worry about, you know what, I'm going to intend to color grade this. So let me change it to a flatter profile so that I can go in and capture more dynamic range and do this and that. It's a different type of, you know, video professional kind of app meant for those kind of quick cuts and stuff. So I do see a couple of questions. I don't know if we want to get to those now, but one of them
definitely.
is really, you know, when is the Xperia Pro-I going to be available? So I know a lot of people are excited. We're here to talk about the phone, but we definitely want to let you guys know it's going to be coming at the beginning of December. So pre-orders are available on B&H right now, and you know, stick with us for now. But then right afterwards, go and pre-order your Xperia Pro-I, and it's going to be hitting the shelves on December 10th. And then on top of that, we've got, you know, I think Jason and Viv had the vlogging monitor accessory on the back at one point. Yeah, they still got it there. And you know, that accessory kit comes with the extra monitor, and it comes with a cable and of course a clamp so that you can mount it to the back of the phone. Use that beautiful 1-inch sensor to do vlogging, to do selfies, and that type of thing. And it retails for $199, but if you buy it with the Xperia Pro-I, we're going to knock $50 off of there. Jason, Viv, do you guys have the Bluetooth handle, the grip, the remote? Oh, they're putting it together.
Yeah, we're assembling.
Yes,
It's
Yeah.
a quick
we do.
assembly right there.
That was awesome. Yeah, and so the grip also normally sells separately. You can just use a monopod, but the grip adds some control, so you can kind of do some digital zoom, start, stop, record. Does some stills and video stuff. Really great accessory. So if you buy that with the Xperia Pro-I, you can get $50 off of that bundle, or you can double dip and get both the vlogging monitor kit and the Bluetooth grip with the Xperia Pro-I for $100 off. So again, everything, the Xperia Pro-I is slated to release December 10th. So yeah, look at that. They're just,
Eric, is
they're
this making
flexing
you
now.
want to do more
This
video?
vlog monitor is so fun.
Yeah, so this is magnetic right here. So you do need this piece that comes with the bundle, and it just comes in like this, and it's just magnetically attached, so it's not going to fall off. And you can I don't know if you can kind of see this messy background, but that's the monitor right here, and this is with the Bluetooth grip. And I paired it up together, and it should record. You hear that noise?
So the
Yeah.
handle, you have full control. I
setup.
mean, it's almost like a gimbal. Like can you swivel and wow.
Yeah, so there's some articulation here. And you can also zoom while you're recording. I know I'm just kind of flip-flopping back and forth, but can you see that zoom right
Wow.
there?
Yeah.
So it's in play with like everything on this grip. So it's very easy to pair as well through the Video Pro app.
Jason, swing that around. Let me take a look at the setup on there, the buttons and everything. So
Yeah. Can you see it right here?
yeah. See, lock it. Oh, see, I was gonna ask, does it have like a customized? Is that C1? Is that a customizable function button?
Yes, yes, it is.
Of course it is. I was gonna say it can't be Sony if it doesn't have a customizable function button.
I haven't got a chance to reprogram to anything. I was wondering if we can, but the record button works, the photo button works, the zoom button, all this, it's just really connected with the Xperia Pro-I, and we can just.
Van, is there a limit on what you can customize on there or with that function button?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't been able to play with all that because Jason and Viv and Eric have been hogging the accessories.
Oops.
That's your homework.
Yep.
Eric, I mean, I was saying before, this I know you shot primarily stills with this, but I mean, it looks pretty easy. You got a kid that runs around a lot. It's a natural, natural video choice.
I definitely have a lot of jobs where I have photo and video deliverables. So video performance on a device is essential. I don't want to be going back and forth between two devices, one for photos, one for videos. So yeah, this functionality, the vlogging features, the 4K 120, all those are things I would definitely utilize when I was shooting. And I think I would use it the same way as Jason and Vivienne were describing. It would be definitely, I mean, it's not going to replace my Alpha 1 by any means, but it is like the perfect supplemental device. And there's so many candid moments, like with my kid, where I'm not going to bring out my setup. And my wife's like, oh, you know, she looks super cute right now. Can you pull out the phone and capture it? So being able to have something that is able to produce an actual shot that we'll be able to cherish forever and not something that's kind of just, you know, not usable is extremely nice to have. And I think the one thing that I wanted to hit on too is having a lot of the really cool functionality, like the facial recognition, the eye autofocus, and having it like the processing speed in this is so incredibly quick. Like I can focus on your eye and like move the camera around so quickly and it remains focused on your eye. And like, you think I'm moving around quick like this, but that's actually how quick my daughter's head moves sometimes. Like she's just all over the place. So I have to keep focus on her eyes, and being able to get nice portraits of her when your subject is moving all around or chaotic or spazzy. I mean, however you want to describe it. The technology to remain focused on her face and get those portraits is actually pretty incredible.
I wanted to ask about that, but I didn't want to drive Van crazy and give him a break there. I didn't want, you get tired of talking, but I wanted to ask about the latency, the processing power. What kind of processor did you guys put in here?
Yeah, so, we like to put fancy names on a lot of things. And so we put some fancy names in this as well. The sensor itself is an Exmor RS, which to me, I can decipher the Sony code, and it means it's a stacked CMOS sensor. The same type of sensor that is at the heart of an Alpha 1, at the heart of an Alpha 9, which means it can read data really, really fast. It's actually able to calculate the exposure, calculate focus and stuff 60 times per second. Keep in mind, the maximum burst rate is 20 frames per second. So you're actually calculating focus and exposure 3 times in between each frame if you're shooting at maximum speed, which is pretty amazing. And a big part of that is, the fact that we do, crop down on the sensor. There's the right amount of data for the camera to be able to bring that in, be able to process it in the Bionz XR mobile processing engine, to be able to say, okay, yeah, this is a face. Yeah, it's coming this way or it's going that way, and do all the kind of ADD things that photographers do in their minds as they're shooting. But now it's a little bit more automated, in a smart device like, the Xperia, like what you would expect. And so that's another really great thing is, that it does help you to kind of focus on other things other than the exposure and the focus so much. You can trust it, just like you would trust, an alpha camera to be able to do those type of things. But yeah, that's a great point, that's been brought up. The ability for it to pull that data off and feed it to the processor quickly means that you have more responsiveness, and you're less likely going to miss a shot or miss focus and things like that. And so and for the first time, with the added kind of smartness of a smart device, an Android device, we have the ability to do eye autofocus in video and face tracking in video and object tracking, which is really sophisticated, and it's happening behind the scenes. But for the end user, you just tap on a face or you tap on an object, and you see it just goes right to it and stays with it, throughout the frame. So, which is some of those things that we take for granted. It's taken a lot of engineering to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We just
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's one of the first things we tested too.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that we tested. I mean, like Van talked about the tech behind it, but when we put it to use, you know, it's really there because if you've used like mirrorless cameras or DSLR cameras, it's just incredibly hard to keep focus when something's just running directly towards the camera, right? So we've done a few testings ourselves.
I was gonna say Jason's head also probably moves the same speed as your daughter's head.
I was charging straight at the camera,
She doesn't,
and
she
the
doesn't
thing
run
was,
yet, but her head moves a lot.
so if you've used one of the latest Sony Alpha cameras, right? You know, the touch tracking autofocus. So same thing, when it can't detect a face, but your subject is kind of far away, you can just tap on the screen and it'll put the focus or the tracking on the subject. And as that face is becoming a lot more apparent, it's gonna kick in and do face autofocus and then to the eye autofocus. So 20 frames per second, no blackout shooting with this, just like the RX.
Easy.
And the 20 and the JPEGs, they all came out really sharp.
They came out really fast. They wrote really fast. All I did was hold down the button, and then, you know,
Yeah.
when you were really far away, like, you know, of course, you know, it wasn't kicking in, but I was able to tap it on your face. And then when we got closer and closer,
and
it's like a horror film. Your face got closer and closer to the camera.
So it batches those photos too. So you're not like, you know, having to see like multiple of these, you know, they kind of like scrunch it together. They know it's a burst shoot.
Yes.
So it just batches all the photos together. So it's really nice.
It makes
Well,
it really funny.
it's like, you know, Van, you said a little earlier, you said the line that we've come to expect. And I think that's such an important thing. It's like you said it and it hit me, and I'm like, you know what? We have professional photographers, vloggers, influencers, everybody who's using these products. You can no longer, and when I say you, I mean brands, you know, you can no longer say, oh, but it's just a cell phone camera. I mean, and I think you guys are kind of washing that line out where it's like you give Eric a phone and say it's a camera, or give him a camera that has phone capabilities, or give him something that does both. And what is Eric going to see? He's going to see, I'm a professional photographer. It's a camera. It has to function as a camera. It can't be like, oh, but this is, you know, like everybody sees on Instagram. I love when people are like, oh, but I shot this with my phone. It's like, oh, okay, it's supposed to account for the difference in quality. And it looks like you guys have blurred that line here. I mean, I always saw the RX line as the professional's point and shoot camera. That's the point and shoot camera that professional photographers take around when they don't want to bring their DSLR, their mirrorless, their big setups. And I think this is kind of asserting itself to me as something where it's saying, all right, Sony just came out and said, nope, we don't want you to have to say, oh, but this was just shot with a phone. This was shot with a mobile device. You're putting it out there as a camera and it's going to perform, and there shouldn't have to be that distinction. And that's specifically why I asked the processor question, because, you know, how many shots have we all, you pull up your phone and you're like, you go to catch something real quick and you're like, well, it took 3 seconds for my camera app to turn on and load. And I was paying extra close attention when Jason and Viv pulled it up, and even how quick, I mean, Jason's like you're a master over there. It's like, guy put together a whole mobile setup in like 5 seconds. And just the little tap of the button right there. So it appeared to me that the latency was like none. It's ready to go, and it's super quick.
Yeah, definitely really fast. And the nice thing is, you know, if you use the shortcut button, if you use the shutter button to quickly launch the camera app, you can have it remember either the last mode that you're in. So if you want to be in that more advanced photography pro with all the settings and stuff, you can have it do that, or you can have it just launch into the most basic, you know, camera app. So, you know, sometimes I'm sure Eric can probably speak to this, but, you know, if you have your camera set up to do, you know, long exposure landscapes or something, and then it's like you whip it out to like take a quick snapshot, you're like, oh wait, it's still set up for a 30-second exposure. Let me change that. You know, sometimes that can kind of be jarring, and then you risk, you know, losing the moment. So yeah, we have some customization and customizability to be able to you know, tell the camera how you want it to act. You know, and of course, you know, let's face it, we're not always the ones that are able to take the picture. So sometimes you're like, hey, I want to be in the shot too. I'm going to hand my phone to, you know, a family member or a trusting stranger or something to take our picture. And they may look at it and say, oh, wow, I don't know what to do here. So you can just switch it over to the basic, you know, camera app and have them just quickly tap the shutter button and be done.
Yeah.
So another nice thing. Yeah.
Sorry, I was
gonna say, Eric, have you shot the raw files? Have you processed the raw files yet?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said a little bit earlier, the dynamic range was something that completely blew me away. I mean, I'm to your point that you just made, I'm what I like to refer to as like a frantic photographer. Like I'm always running late. I'm very used to, back when I was an engineer getting into photography, I would go every day after work and I would get there literally with like a minute or two to go, and I had to figure something out. So just be able to jump into, camera mode right away, have all your settings, how you traditionally used to seeing them, and also having the device operate so quickly to my other traditional alpha camera is just one less step that I have to do to actually getting the shot. And then, yeah, the raw files are incredible. I mean, I like to push my editing quite a bit. I shoot dark scenes and I need to be able to recover a lot of details in like the waves and the surfers that I'm shooting at sunset. And they're definitely not well lit scenes, and they're typically quick moving scenes. So I need to be able to have somewhat of a quick shutter speed in low light. And until this phone, I would say I realistically had like a lot of trouble capturing those like sunset surfing shots. So I was pretty blown away by what I was able to do when I went back and edited them.
Eric, how does it compare to the Xperia 1 III?
So I think just having the increased sensor size, the increased pixels, I mean, those are all things that I utilize in low light situations. I mean, I wouldn't say that device didn't perform well at low light, because I shot a lot of sunsets with that and I was blown away, but this is just even getting to another level of even closer to what I would expect out of my mirrorless camera. So I'm completely floored by how well it performed.
And I want to throw it out to all you guys. We had a question come in from Shravan on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, Shravan, asking about the battery time. So can you talk about the battery life in general? And Shravan's particularly had a question about how long does the battery last when you're filming video with an external monitor connected to it?
That's a fantastic question. We actually haven't gotten a chance to really push it to the limit yet, but so far we've just been taking a lot of photos and doing, short bursts, 4K 120, and the device held up for quite a bit.
Yeah. It lasted us the whole day.
Yeah.
I got a
just
question
like the
out of left.
Xperia 1 Mark III, the Pro-I has a 4,500 milliamp lithium ion battery, and we actually include the charger. So you still have a charger in there. And on top of that, it's a 30-watt charger. So that 30-watt charger can actually provide power delivery and charge 50% of the battery in as little as 30 minutes. So that's really great. I travel with a MacBook for editing and stuff, and so sometimes I just bring that charger, and it can charge many different devices across different voltages or wattages as well. So it's nice that it is a USB-C. It is nice that it has power delivery, and it's nice that we actually still include it in case you want that. You want to have that dedicated charger.
Ben, what about the accessory set? We had a question from Tim. Thanks for joining us, Tim, on YouTube, asking about the rear monitor accessory, if that works with the Xperia Pro 5G. Are these accessories just for the Pro-I?
Yes. So right now it's just for the Pro-I, and it's not like how like on your computer you can just plug in an external monitor and you have two monitors. It's not quite that type of thing. It's for specific purposes when you're using, like the Video Pro, Photo Pro, any of the camera kind of apps. So it's definitely for purpose. And so, yeah, it's not right now compatible with the Xperia Pro original.
Okay. And I want to kind of keep it there with customization of this. Jason and Viv, what about mics? Can you just go over again? Because we've had some questions come in about the audio and audio capabilities. Is there any external miking available, or what kind of mic is on there?
Yeah. So this at the Xperia Pro-I has the rear mono mic right here, which is just sitting, depending on how you want to look at it, either the top or the bottom of the 24mm lens. And it does a really good job capturing the audio, especially if you're vlogging and you're like talking to it. It picks up really well. And we got a chance to actually test it out where I'm talking and then you were behind the camera. There was some traffic kind of going by.
Yeah, we were doing kind of like what we usually would do for talking head, like A-roll. And then I think we were right next to a street at like a park.
Yes.
And I just had the rear mic on, and I think it captured it really well.
Yes. But also you can also expand your option too with the external microphone. So I don't know if you can see that, but on the vlogging monitor right there's a little red input right here where you can, plug in an external microphone, like a shotgun mic. So you're not limited to just Sony accessories, but you can play with your favorite shotgun mic from any other brand, and they just connect via 3.5mm jack. So I got this right here. We can have this out, and immediately once you plug it in, the device will be like, oh, hey, there's an external microphone, we're going to go ahead and use it.
Right here. Yep.
So,
Wow.
okay. Boom. I know it's kind of hard to see. And, once we make a follow-up video to the Xperia Pro-I, you're going to see all of this in action. This screen right here, extremely high quality. And you can actually monitor audio on the screen itself right here. And it'll say external. It can detect that it's being used or it's using an external microphone.
So basically, Van, you're not getting your camera back for a while. So don't be expecting it.
That's okay.
We're keeping this. What are you talking about?
It's ours now.
Now, I gotta ask. I don't know who wants to take this. I know Jason and Viv, you've been using it for video stuff, or Van, if you want to take this. When I initially hear Xperia, I think of it as I'm thinking like a monitor, like an external. Does this have the same capability? I know. Haven't you guys had that in the past on the Xperia line of using it as an external monitor for using it with the Alpha system?
So that's a hallmark feature of the original Xperia Pro, which was the HDMI input on the bottom of the device. So in that situation, the Xperia Pro, you can use it as an external monitor in conjunction with your Alpha, in conjunction with a broadcast cam, or pretty much any device as an HDMI that has an HDMI output. I've used it as a confidence monitor, when I'm on a set. And it's got some really great capabilities, being able to pinch zoom, get in there, and check critical focus, and all sorts of things. With the Pro-I, it doesn't have an HDMI input per se, but it does have the ability to connect a UVC or UAC compatible device. For instance, the ZVE10, and you can use that as a camera and the smartphone kind of as an external monitor in that situation. But there are limitations with regards to the quality of the signal. So with a UVC and UAC protocol, you're not able to get 4K resolution. You're not able to get sometimes even 1080p resolution. It's scaled down to like 720. It's scaled down to a shorter frame rate. Sometimes it's not going to be able to handle 30 or 60 frames per second, let alone 120 frames per second. So, that's where some things kind of still set apart the Xperia Pro versus the Pro-I. And then, of course, the Pro also has that really unique 4-way 5G millimeter wave antenna. So it can really be used as more of a transitional device that can get your files off of your phone or off of your camera up into the cloud or up into a server somewhere where somebody's waiting to edit it or ingest that content. And that's another point that we should probably point out, is that the Xperia Pro-I is 5G capable, but it's not 5G ultra wave millimeter wave technology. It's the 5G what's called sub-6 or sub-6 gigahertz, which is more common. You're going to see that quite a bit around town, even out in some rural areas. 5G millimeter wave is really concentrated to dense populated areas. A lot of stadiums, a lot of football stadiums, basketball stadiums, things like that, where you're really going to get that really high throughput of like gigabit up and down, speeds, especially when you're shooting large amounts of data or shooting large amounts of files or large files themselves, like videos tends to be, and then you got to move them, quickly, and so that's where that kind of differentiates the two there with regards to their cellular performance.
Wow. So I'm going to throw it out there again. I know I've mentioned the RX100 a couple times. Where does this stand? I'm going to just throw it out there. As far as image quality, auto-focusing capabilities, dynamic range, are we looking at, can you make a comparison to the RX100?
That's a tough one because there's so many different capabilities. They may share the same sensor, but for ages, I've had customers, photographers and videographers who have asked, why can't you just put like a 4G or 5G SIM card into your camera so that can have automatic backups or automatic uploads? And it's like, well, I know you charge your phone every day, every night, multiple times a day. We don't want to have that type of experience when it comes to a camera, a dedicated camera. Because there's significant drain when you're constantly connected and that type of thing. But I think this is kind of a step towards that, maybe. Having an Xperia Pro, which is a smart device that is meant for professionals, looking to move their images, looking to move their videos, and stay connected, or kind of have a hybrid approach. And that's one of the analogies that I like to use is you look at like vehicles these days, and there's people who are full in on the EVs, and they're like, you know what, I'm going all in. I'm going to be super efficient, no more gasoline. And they got the electric vehicle. And then the concern is, well, how much range do I have with this vehicle, right? If I get stuck out in the desert somewhere, where's the next charging station, right? And then you got the other side of the coin where it's, the gasoline, and it's like, I know I'm doing the planet a disservice. I need to have a more fuel efficient vehicle. Whereas, the hybrid kind of melds the best of both worlds. And I think that's where this product really kind of stands, firmly is that it's melding those two worlds of having the immediacy of, being able to get your images out to the world, but then also have the quality that you come to expect with a professional, dedicated, kind of camera. And so that's the analogy that I like to use. What do you guys think? Does that?
That exactly is actually part of like the whole workflow. When you mentioned like working off the RAWs, and for us, for me myself, I love to share it to like Instagram, or even just like send it to like friends and family. And I know when we were in Hawaii, like I was able to just process the RAWs from like whatever I shot that day into Lightroom really quickly. And I just like do a couple little quick edits, don't have to do too much. And then I can just quickly be like, oh, hey, look at this beautiful sunset I got, or hey, look at this. And it was just really seamless. Like I didn't have to, like that whole workflow of like getting files off of your camera onto the computer and into Lightroom, or, vice versa or something like that.
It is definitely understated. I mean, like the RAW files that we just shoot directly off the Xperia Pro-I, and just being able to just pull it up on Lightroom Mobile, process that RAW is just amazing, and again, it's just, we don't have to like take out the SD card, plug it into her computer, upload it, because she's a huge
I like mobile edit.
She's not going to whip out a laptop and just start editing. She likes, maybe on her iPad or something like that.
It's because I like
even on a device
feel,
like this,
like the tactile feel of, like really like using my hands to kind of like do the sliders, to do the colors, like just something I personally really like.
And that quickness of just after you finish processing, you export and you share. That's like also really cool, taking advantage of that.
Because I am connected on the phone, so I could be like, hey, I could just post this right away,
and then
I don't have to transfer it over.
But also another thing that's sort of like I don't think we got a chance to mention, and just really quickly, the device I think has 512 gigabyte internal, but if you want an option to expand that, there's an expandable storage as well. So you can fit a micro SD card in here if you suddenly fill up too much space, and you probably will, because, with all the RAW files you're shooting and maybe the 4K videos, you might need that expandable storage. And it's just nice to have that option as well if you prefer to have your workflow that way.
I think a lot of us forgot about what expandable storage is in a phone. So that's a beautiful
option. That little SD
micro wonderful
card you plug in.
That's one of those things. It's like, man, it took us 52 minutes to bring that up. And like, that's like the first thing everybody's concerned about is storage. It's like, wait, so I can't put a 2 terabyte mini SD card in my phone for all of my 60,000 pictures that I have? No, I mean, that's a huge thing. It's the little things. I mean, you guys really, man, put a ton of detail into this, and it shows. I do want to throw a question. An interesting question came in from Kaveh on YouTube. Is it possible to eventually increase the thickness of the phone to allow for a larger sensor with full coverage?
That sounds like a technical question. Anything's possible. It's just not everything's practical, right? So I think that's the main thing is we wanted to keep the form factor really slim. Is it possible? Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, I think at some point we could have probably played with some different designs and tried, how is it going to look? How is it going to feel having the optics on the front of the phone or the back of the phone, I guess, depending on how you look at it, that can cover the 1-inch sensor. And I think the decision was made, like it's just too bulky and too large. And, whenever you have a protrusion like that, you got to worry about, how do people carry phones around? They usually slide them in their back pocket, slide it into a pocket somewhere, and having that piece, I'm not sure that it's a practical thing. Obviously, Sony's an optics company as well. We make lots of great lenses for our alpha cameras. And so we could totally make a lens that goes on the front of that 1-inch sensor, but is it practical? I think at this time, probably not. Is it impossible? We don't like to say that, right? So I think that's something that maybe we can ask to the product team and see what they think. Maybe someday we'll have that.
There we go. Well, I want to stay right there. Optics. Did we go over what kind of, are we looking at Zeiss Optics? Did we touch on that?
Oh, well, yeah, we've been using Zeiss Optics for a long time too. So one of the key things about the 24mm camera though, is that it has an aspherical glass element in it, and I don't think that we didn't really talk about it too much. The coatings, I think that a lot of people take for granted, oh, it's a Sony phone or Sony camera, it's going to have Zeiss multi-coated coatings. It's going to have Zeiss type of optical designs, which are really fantastic, really crispy and saturated and really great. But the glass aspherical element is super important, especially for photographers and videographers, because they're used to using high quality optics. A lot of smartphones out there, if you don't know already, they're not necessarily using glass optics. They're using polycarbonate or other type of high grade plastics. I have polycarbonate lenses right here because these get smashed or thrown somewhere, and so I don't want to have to worry about it. So yeah, you see those, but having real optics, real glass lenses, that's another step. And Sony, again, we've got this really rich kind of repertoire of amazing TVs, really great looking TVs, screens, panels, really great cameras, really great gaming division, music, all that stuff. And it's like, well, why not? We've already developed, the sensor here. We've already developed a screen here. Let's put the best of everything into one place and sell it as a smartphone. And I think that's, again, kind of embodies the whole Xperia lineup.
Okay, nobody say anything. Van, just like you tied a bow around it. I don't want to screw this up. Now, I'm gonna sneak in a final bonus question here. Chencho, we see you out there watching on YouTube. I want to thank you for joining us. And Chencho got a question in, and it's not Xperia Pro-I related, but we're going to answer it because it is Sony, and we're going to give the people what they want, right? It's all about the viewers. Chencho's asking what you guys' favorite portrait lens is for the E-mount. So Eric, I don't know if you want to go with just a general lens that you use, your favorite E-mount lens, and Jason and Viv, what's your favorite E-mount lens? My
favorite portrait. So the one I've been using the most is the 24-1.4. It's small, it's light, it is incredibly sharp and detailed. It's great for video and photo. I use it for pretty much everything that I shoot. So if I had to pick one, I guess portrait focus or prime lens, that would probably be the one that I utilize, especially because I shoot a lot of landscapes too, right? So I've used the 85, the 135. Those are great for more specific shots, but I need something that's a little more versatile that I can shoot like a subject in a scene. So I always default to the 24-1.4 as like my favorite prime lens.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my favorite too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just to like hop on that as well, like we love the 24 as well. It's just nice and wide. And in my channel, I often talk about how to pair that up with an 85mm lens because it just gives you that duality. And any 85 will be fantastic to add into your arsenal. So the one that comes into mind that is, I think it's really budget friendly, is going to be the Sony 85-1.8 that they have in the market. I think it's one of our favorite 85 lens to use, and I think it's a great starter portrait lens for anybody, that 85. But if you feel like that's a little too tight, I mean, there's a lot of 50mm options as well, but play with the 85, get uncomfortable with that tightness, try it out, and I guarantee you will love the results.
There you go. Van, you're going to jump on the bandwagon, or you're going to introduce something new into the mix?
Yeah, I think both of them are, both Eric and Jason and Viv, you guys are spoiled by the A1 and the ability to crop in. Picking those wide lenses, but I get it. You guys are also, you're definitely more of the the breadth of the environmental portrait as well, and you guys are definitely masters of doing that. So I'll give it to you. But I think for myself, it used to be the 135-1.8 GM. You just get some really amazing compression with it, really pleasing kind of a drop off between sharp focus and defocused areas. But it's also very tight. So it definitely, you have to kind of know, like, you've got some space to work with it. But quickly, I think right now replacing it is the 50 f1.2 G Master lens. That thing is just super, super sharp, and it focuses so quickly and tracks well. I mean, it's a nifty 50. 50 is kind of one of those focal lengths you can kind of work with in a lot of different situations. And if you're shooting something like the Alpha 1, then you can crop it in more. It is hard to get that wider kind of, shot, but I'm okay backing up a couple steps.
There you go. Chencho, we got a whole round of options for you there. So we want to make sure you didn't get left out with that question there. But I want to thank you guys. A huge thank you, obviously, to Sony for sponsoring today's event, to our wonderful pro panel here, Van, Jason, Viv, Eric. You guys were great. I always love doing these panels. It's always like I'm just sitting around in my living room, because I am talking tech with a couple of people in the biz. So it's always good to have you guys. So I want to send a huge thank you to our pro panel, to Sony for sponsoring, and of course to everybody out there on Vimeo, live stream, Facebook, YouTube. Can't do it without you guys. We do it for you. This has been another rendition of the B&H